Okay, so we'll get into the fifth lesson here shortly. What do you need, bud?
Can I write down the problem before you do the answer and then try to solve them before you write the answer to it?
Are you talking about for the homework assignment? Well, I'm not gonna be saying the problem, I'm just giving answers. So that really won't work. But there's always ways to solve problems. I know that I've shared this with you all before, and sometimes because I talk a lot, which I'm sorry, but I know sometimes I say things and some people hear me and they hear me every time I say it, and then other people don't hear me because maybe they weren't listening the last time. So then when I say it a second time, then they hear me. There's always a way to solve problems, okay? Like, we're currently in a pandemic, which created a huge problem in the school system. But it wasn't like you just shut down school and you didn't have school then, because you're in a pandemic. We had to find a way to solve that problem. So we did that, we fixed it. We found a way to still make school active, even during a pandemic, okay? So if you have an assignment that you have been given, please listen. If you have an assignment you've been given and something happens and you get home from school and you don't have the book that you need to have to complete the assignment, that's a problem, right? But if we think there's always a way to solve the problem, then we're not just gonna sit there and be like, oh man, I forgot my book, and then just not do anything. We're gonna put effort into finding a way to solve the problem. So what would be a way you could solve that problem, Alan?
Like you can text a friend and say like, hey, can you send me a picture of like the workbook page?
That's it.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know what it was and my brain was, can you tell me what it is?
Right, and see, you all are so lucky because you all have this little part of your world called texting, social media. I didn't have that as a kid growing up.
No.
So when you forgot your book, you legitimately could not get that assignment finished because you had no way to get it because everybody's stuff was at school or at their house. Now, I could have picked up a telephone, that would have been in those days, I could have picked up a telephone that wasn't a screen telephone, it was like a phone that you just spoke to people. And I could pick up the phone and I could have my friend read out the problems to me. That could have been a way I could have solved it, but that was gonna take some time, right? But it was still a way to solve the problem. So I had a child yesterday in a different class come up to me, didn't have the homework. This particular child said, Miss Malone, I'm so sorry I don't have my homework. I left my book at another house and I wasn't able to do the work because my book was at a different house. That's not true. She did have a way to complete the work. Because she very easily could have called the person that she needed to call and said, I left my book there. Could you take a picture of the pages I need and text it to me? And then, even though she didn't really have the actual pages, all she then needed to do was just put the work on a separate sheet of paper. Callie showed up today with that. She doesn't actually have the workbook page in front of her, but she has a piece of paper that has all the problems on it because she problem solved. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like when we come to school and we have this big story why we don't have our work, do you see how if you think like me and I think like you, when you're telling me that big long story, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Yeah, well that's obvious because you don't have it, but what am I thinking?
You're thinking that because it's late and didn't do the work.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's an excuse. Because there is a way to solve every problem, right? And it's just, it's all about how much you really care about it, So that's why we have to just make sure that we just, every day, and I don't know what we have to do, I don't know if we have to come up with a visual that's gonna help us to remember or what, but maybe, and that's something, a conversation you can have to kind of come up with a game plan to help to where we don't continually forget to bring things that are necessary back to school, okay? So For the moment, because we're gonna move pretty quickly through this, so just kind of chill for a second, you can get your math notebook out because you don't need that. But for the rest of you people, you're ready to hear what these answers are. Okay, so for problem number 1, your answer should be 106. For number 2, your answer should be 102. Remember, all of these are problems that have zeros in the quotient, so every one of them should have a 0 in the answer. For problem number 3, 507, remainder 5. Number 4, 1090. Number 5, 406, remainder 6. Number 6, 709, remainder 1. Number 7, 1052. Number 8, 1045, remainder 7. Number 8, 610, remainder 4. Number 10, 990. Number 11, 806, remainder 1. And number 12, 1040, remainder 3. How do we do on the first page? Good. Did anybody make more than, let's say, 3 errors? You had some? Okay.
I had 3 errors.
3? Just 3? Which isn't, that's not, a huge deal,
I had things.
but we have to figure out, like, what's causing those errors. So, I always use the thing like be your own detective. See if you can find where you went wrong. And remember, in these kind of problems, there's division, there's multiplication, and there's subtraction, all inside of one problem. So there's a really good place a really good chance that you could make an error, okay? And like, I was telling 5P yesterday, I'm gonna take just a second, tell me one of the problems that you had a goof on. Which problem?
11.
Okay, tell me what's the number inside the box, what's the dividend?
5,643.
Okay, divided by,
7.
okay. So when I was talking to 5P yesterday, I was explaining to them, there are places inside some of these problems where you have to do what I call baby math. So baby math is like subtracting 2 numbers, okay? Like 3 minus 0. That's a baby math problem, right? But sometimes when your brain is so like loaded with so many steps that it has to do inside one problem, you move too quick on those baby math places. And instead of saying 3 minus 0 is 3, you say 3 minus 0 is 0. And you make what I call like a baby math mistake, okay? Did that happen to any of you on the ones that maybe you goofed on? Not really sure yet? All right, well, let's look and see on this particular problem and see if we can figure out where your mistake went wrong, okay? How many 7s will fit into 56?
8.
8 of them will. So if I think about my steps for division, remember, does McDonald's serve burgers daily? So I just did my division, I divided my number outside with my number inside. Now I'm moving into multiplication. So what am I gonna multiply? 7 times 8, which is?
56.
Perfect, good. So no multiplication, no baby math errors yet. Now what's our next step? Subtract. What's 56 minus 56?
0.
Perfect. What do I do after I subtract?
You bring down.
Good, bring down the 4, okay? Now, every time you bring something down, the rule of division is that you then go back to the beginning and you start all over, okay? So now, what are you gonna divide now?
7 to 4.
And how many 7s will fit in the 4?
0.
Right, so that 0 goes up here on the roof. Every time we put a number on the roof, we then multiply it by our divisor. What's 0 times 7?
0.
0. Look at your work for just a minute and see if your work on your page is so far looking the way my work looks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have anything different yet from each other? Okay, so when we subtract, what am I left with?
4.
Left with 4. What do I do next?
Okay, bring back 3.
Good. And then every time you bring something down, you gotta restart, right? So what am I gonna do now?
Yeah, 7 doesn't.
Right, 27s will fit into 43. 6 of them will. What's 6 times 7? Because I gotta multiply. 42. Okay, check your work. Have we done anything different from each other yet? We did. So where did we start? Where did your work and my work start to change?
Oh, I forgot to, yeah, right there.
Let me see.
Put before.
Oh, so see, you did one of those baby math errors. What he did here, y'all, instead of doing 4 minus 0 is 4, he said 4 minus 0 is 0. Those are those baby math errors, okay? And they get frustrating because you do all like the hard stuff right, and then you have that one little spot, and then it makes the whole answer wrong, okay? So you just have to kind of be careful, like you get to these places and it's like you're moving fast. So you're like, oh, that's easy. But then sometimes when it looks so easy, that's sometimes when you make those mistakes. Once you finally subtract, you're left with 1, right? And then there's nothing left to bring down, so that becomes your remainder. So that's where the answer was created, but it's good that you were able to locate where your answer went wrong. Hallie, did you have a question or no?
What is number 4?
Number 4, the answer was 1090. Okay, all right, let's flip to the second page, page 56. All right, let's check these things. For number 1 on page 56, you should have 1078.
Yes.
Okay, oh my gosh, my eyes. For number 2, should be 308 remainder 2.
Yes.
For number 3, 1080 remainder 3.
Yes.
Number 4, 307 remainder 3.
Yes.
Number 5, 1302. And number 6, 1090 remainder 4.
Yes.
And for those, you had to rewrite them because they didn't do it for you. Okay. All right. For number 7, it says which have a 0 in the quotient. So you were looking at solving these, and you had to figure out of all of these problems which ones would have a 0 in the quotient. So the ones that you should have circled is A, B, and E. Okay. For the problem solving section, so you were going to need to fill in some of the missing information on that graph in order to be able to answer some of the questions that were below. So on the graph, the missing information is the stuff that went with the speed. Okay. So a boy running, his speed should have been 608. A train should have been 107, and then a bee flying should have been 180. Okay. And if you did all of that, that kind of answered number 8 in that section. And then number 9 basically said, does the boy run faster than the bumblebee flies? And you should have said yes. And how you solve that? Well, 608, so if you took the speed of the boy running and divided it by 3, because it talked about in the story that there were 3 feet in the yard. So if you took that and you divided it by 3, you ended up with 202 remainder 2. But if you took the speed of the bumblebee and divided it, your number was smaller. So
Oh, that's what I did.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the answer was formed. Okay, so you all feel good with this? Excellent, okay, so let's go ahead and put this aside. I feel like we know how to do division with quotients with zeros in the quotient. I feel like we know how to divide single digit numbers. So the only other things that we've done up to this point, if you can kind of think back in all of the stuff we've done in chapter 4 so far, is estimating quotients using compatible numbers. You haven't forgotten that, right? Because that's super important. That's still part of this chapter. As well as being able to solve some division problems mentally using mental math because the numbers ended with zeros. So, y'all remember how we did that too? So we've done 4 lessons in chapter 4 so far. Excuse me. And we're getting ready to move into the 5th lesson. And that 5th lesson is divisibility rules. Okay. Now, I really hope this is not this could be the first time you've ever seen this. I'm not really sure. Okay. But in math land, there are rules. There are rules we must follow. Just like in real life, there are rules we must follow. Okay? One of those math rules that you all have been exposed to before already is like the PEMDAS stuff, the order of operations. The order that you would work certain things in a problem to be able to come up with the correct answer. Okay? Well, in division, there are rules that go with specific numbers for division. So what I have done is created a chart for you. Okay? And I'm going to show you the whole chart. It's going to look overwhelming. But before you just start writing things, because as soon as I show this to you, you're going to want to just start writing. But you're going to then miss what my words are saying. So don't just start writing right away, okay? But this divisibility chart, what it does is it helps you to quickly see if a large number can be divided by a specific number, okay? So what I have done here is I have given you on the left side of the screen, I have given you the rule, and I have given you the number that rule pertains to. And then on the right side of the screen, I have given you an example, okay? This is kind of what I was trying to prepare you for today. I said you're going to have to get this chart in your notes. Because if you don't have this in your notes, tonight when you do an assignment, you're going to need this chart to complete tonight's assignment. So if you don't have it, it's going to be tough to complete the assignment, okay? Now, if you had a math book, this would have been in your math book, and you wouldn't have had to have copied it. But because we don't all have math books, it changes things a little bit, all right? But the other thing is, you guys, there is this like little thing, it's a saying that has existed for a long time, and it goes like this: when you read it and you write it, you remember it, okay? So even though this would have been something in your book, you have a better chance at remembering this because you're physically writing it. And there's a connection that's formed with the brain when your hand is involved in writing something. It connects better with the brain and helps it to remember it. All right? So let's just look at the first one, and then I'm just going to stop talking and let you start writing. Okay? So the first one says, the rule is, a number is divisible by 2 if the ones digit is divisible by 2. Okay? So that would be, here are some numbers that would make that rule true. Okay? Like the number 20. And I tried to make the digit that's in the ones place a different color so it kind of popped out a little bit to you all. But if you look at the digit in the ones place in each of these numbers, that number is a multiple of 2. So therefore, that whole number is going to be a multiple of 2. Okay? We could get serious crazy with this, you guys. And let's just say, well, I'm not going to write on the board. Let's just say that I gave you like a giant number, and my giant number was 4, 9, 6, 3, 8, 2, 4, 7, 4. And I said, is that number divisible by 2? No, you would not. You would not have to use a calculator because the divisibility rule makes that super simple. The divisibility rule says that a number is divisible by 2 if the digit in the ones place is divisible by 2. So out of this giant number, Brody, what's the digit that's in the ones place? The 4. Is 4 a number that's divisible by 2? Yes. So that giant number is divisible by 2. You don't need a calculator. You just have to know the rules. The rule when I drive a car is I stop when the light is red. That's an easy rule. So the rule in math is that if you want to know if a number can be divided by 2, just look at the very last digit of that number. And if that very last digit can be divided by 2, then the whole number can be divided by 2. Does that make sense? Okay, get that rule written down first. So, more than what you have, I think. But that's okay, that's okay. So we're gonna kind of walk through this in pieces. I'm not showing you everything, because then you'll miss the words that go with it. Now, when we look at the next rule, and I know you're still copying, and that's okay, but if we look at the next rule is now talking about the number 4. So what's the rule for number 4? So if a question asks me, is this number divisible by 4? Well, what's the quick way that I could figure that out? Just like for number 2, I figured out the quick way is I just look at the last digit, and then I can determine using that last digit if it's divisible by 2. Well, if it's divisible by 4, what's the quick way I can tell with that? And the rule says this. If you look at the last 2 digits, so the digit that's in the ones place and in the tens place, if those 2 digits, when they're together, make a number that's divisible by 4, then the whole number is divisible by 4. Okay? So that might sound a little more confusing than what the 2 rule said. But look at the example, okay? So it says you have to look at the last 2 digits of that number. So I gave you a number, 31,816. The last 2 digits in that big number are a 1 and a 6. 1 and 6, when they sit together, make what number? Everybody? 16. They make 16. So is 16 divisible by 4? Yes. So that's the fast way that I know that 31,816 is divisible by 4. Because the last 2 digits of that big number make a number that's divisible by 4. Okay? What?
So you don't actually add 61 together?
No, you don't add them. You just look at what those 2 numbers at the end make. What number do they make? Okay, so let me give you another example. And I hate that I'm not writing it on here because the kids at home are missing out on it then. So I'm going down here. Y'all are now seeing how much you're going to have to write, but okay. All right, so let's look. I will go back in just a moment, but take a freeze for a second. So the divisibility rule for 4 says that you look at this giant number and you look at the last 2 digits. So let's just say that my giant number is 846,324. Okay? The divisibility rule for 4 says all you have to do, if you're trying to see if that giant number is divisible by 4, you just have to look at the last 2 digits of the number and see what number they make. What number do those last 2 digits make, everybody? 24. Is 4 and 24, do they go together?
Yes.
Yes. So is 846,324 divisible by 4? Is it divisible by 2?
Yeah.
Yes, because look, for it to be divisible by 2, the last digit has to be divisible by 2. And it is. So this big giant number here can be divided by a 4, It can also be divided by a 2. Are we catching on to this stuff now? Okay. All right, let's move back up to our chart. I kind of warned you all a little bit.
Do you think my memory work will fit in this box?
It just depends on how many. I will tell you, we have to do a rule for 2, 4, 6, 8, 5, and 9.
So, how many is that?
I don't understand the 4 rule.
The 4 rule?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move back down here for a second for James, everybody. James, give me a number, any number, I don't care.
24,616.
There's your number. To know if this number can be divided by a 4, you have to look at the last 2 numbers in your number. What are the last 2 numbers in your number?
16.
A 1 and a 6, and together they make 16. So, can 16 be divided by 4?
Yes.
Yes. Then 24,616 can be divided by 4.
Oh, but if they don't, but if the
Right.
numbers together aren't divisible by 4,
Then it's not. Oh, so like if my number was 24,618, would that be divisible by 4?
No.
Because 18 is not divisible by 4. Thanks for asking that question. Okay. All right. Oh, what? Okay. I don't know what just happened, but whatever. All right. So, rule 2 and rule 4. I know some of you are still copying, possibly. But are there any questions? Speak now. Okay. Yes, Addison.
What's that letter before the L on the, like after the word ones, like, it looks like it says,
Digits.
oh,
It's D-I-G-I-T-S.
it looks like all digits.
Sorry. When you're writing on a smart board with this tool, it's real hard to kind of write small.
Maybe we should get just a pointy one.
Okay. What?
Maybe we should get
That's all right. I like
Well,
this
the
thing.
computer wouldn't read it as pointy, it just read it as the exact same thickness as that.
Well, I can change the thickness of it. It's just you're writing on a machine. Machines are tougher to write on than paper. Okay, let's look at the divisibility rule for number 3. Okay, so I'm giving you the third part to your chart. If anybody has trouble seeing any stuff or whatever. Oh, I'll move it down just a second. Okay, so the divisibility rule for 3 says, so now things get a tiny bit different, okay? Because for this one, you have to add up all the digits in the number. This is the one, Addison, where you add the digits together, okay? So to know if a number can be divided by a 3, you have to add up all of the digits in the number and get a sum. And if that sum can be divided by 3, then the number can be divided by 3. That sounds a little bit confusing. So over here on the example side, I tried to kind of give you an example, all right? So my example is supposed to say 3,591. Okay, if that was the number that you were looking at, and you were trying to figure out if 3,591 can be divided by 3. Well, the rule says that what you have to do is take each individual digit and add them together. So you have to take your 3 that's in the thousands place, add it to the 5 that's in the hundreds place, add that to the 9 that's in the tens place, and then add the last one, the 1 that's in the ones place. When you add all of those digits together, you get a sum, right? The sum is what we call the answer to an addition problem. So when I add all those together, I get a sum of 18. Is 18 a number that can be divided by 3? Yes. So then that makes that number a number that can be divided by 3.
Is all the next chapter gonna be on this?
The whole next lesson, not chapter, lesson. That's what you meant.
Could this be chapter 4 plus 5.
This is 4, 5, yeah. And this is the last lesson, y'all, that we're gonna learn before we're gonna start preparing for a quiz, okay? Because we always have to kind of stop halfway through a chapter and make sure that everything that we have learned up to that point, we know, okay? So at the conclusion of this chapter, we're gonna take a little pause, we're gonna kind of do a review, and then we're gonna take a quiz. So that we understand and we can show our teacher that we are understanding everything we've done so far.
I'm kind of confused on number 3.
On the 3. Okay, so let's do an example. I love when people ask questions. Thank you, Allie. Okay, so let me get rid of all these because I think we're pretty good, right, on the 2s and the 4s.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say it was a 3. All right, so Allie, give me a number. Let's not make it a giant number because remember, we gotta add all the digits to it. So, I mean, you can.
72.
72. That it? Or you wanna give me more?
72,000.
72,000, what?
676.
676. Okay, there's her number. All right, well, first off, let me ask you, is this number divisible by 2?
Yes.
Yes, because the 6 at the end, right there, tells me that it can't be divided by 2. Can it be divided by 3?
No.
Will 3 go into 76?
No.
No? Well, I don't know, let's see, what's 3?
Wait, no, yes.
Let's see, what's 3 divided by 76? 3 goes into 7 2 times, I'm left with 1. Will 3 go into 16
Yes.
evenly? 3 times anything, 16? No, so you're right, not divisible by 3. But, or 2, or 4. Oh gosh, so many numbers are running together. It's not divisible by 4 because the last 2 digits we cannot, right? No, last one is not.
This one.
But let's look at the 3, okay, because this is the one that she was trying to kind of figure out. So, to be divisible by 3, the rule tells me, Allie, that I have to add each of these digits together.
That's not.
Hold up. Wait. So if I add all this stuff together, Allie, I'm gonna get a new number. So let's figure this out. What's 7 plus 2, Allie? 9. What's 9 plus 6?
15.
15. What's 15 plus 7? 22. What's 22 plus 6?
22 plus 6 is 28.
28. So we come up with a grand total of 28. Is 3 times anything 28?
Actually,
No.
yeah.
3 times nothing is 28. So that means the number you just gave me, 72,676, is not divisible by 3. Okay? Because the sum, the number that we got when we added all the digits together, is not divisible by 3. Does that make more sense now? And a minute ago, I kind of had a goof up on this one because I was thinking 3. We were supposed to be doing it by 4. So, right?
Someone got to know that.
Yeah, because it's time to switch classes. All right, so here's the thing. We didn't finish and we got to stop. And so we aren't going to be ready for homework tonight. So we'll finish this lesson another day. So you have no homework tonight.
I usually put my